Violence against politicians and political figures is on the rise in Britain. There's no doubt about that. Joe Cox was murdered by a far-right extremist a decade ago, while David Amess was killed in 2021. Indeed, just a few weeks ago, Reform member and former Tory minister Anne Widdecombe was murdered in her home. That is still a live investigation, but a man has been charged with her murder, and the police have stated they believe that Widdecombe was targeted. Elsewhere, Jeremy Corbyn has been assaulted in recent years, as has Nigel Farage. Keir Starmer's home, meanwhile, was subject to a firebombing. At the time, he was living at number 10, something which has, of course, since changed. I should add, I take this stuff seriously, not least because it happened to me. Walking down the street I live on a few years ago, on the way to work, in fact, I was assaulted by a man in what was a targeted political attack. He knew who I was, and he said as much. I was lucky. He couldn't fight, but that doesn't really matter if someone has a knife or even a hard, blunt object. And those kinds of events are the background to a story which broke last night. Yesterday, Zack Polanski, leader of the Green Party of England and Wales, collaborated on an Instagram carousel published by the account Just Barreled. They are a freelance photojournalist with almost 10,000 followers on the platform. One of the pictures in that carousel is the one you can see on your screen. For those listening to the podcast, it's an image of a man making the victory sign with his fingers, and he's wearing a t-shirt with a guillotine on it and the words, "We're only making plans for Nigel." There's a person that's next to the guillotine. The implicit point being that, like the ruling class during the French Revolution, Farage will soon be decapitated. Now, this t-shirt is obviously a joke, and it should be added that the words "We're only making plans for Nigel" is a play on a song. Those are the lyrics of a 1979 song by a band called XTC. What is more, I suspect, although I can't be sure, that the person wearing that t-shirt wouldn't be remotely capable of such an act, even if it was against someone they strongly disliked. It's a joke. They're having a bit of fun. People say all kinds of things they don't really mean, let's be honest. I'm sure you have. I certainly have in the past. But the context of recent events, particularly the murder of Widdecombe, should make it pretty obvious that a politician, least of all the leader of a political party, shouldn't share something like that post. Now, for his part, Polanski deleted it pretty sharpish. A Green Party spokesperson subsequently clarified the matter, saying that once this image was brought to Zack's attention, he immediately unshared the post. He unequivocally does not support this type of dangerous message. That spokesperson also went on to say this. Zack condemns the image on the t-shirt. He was tagged in a post with 20 images and clicked accept without realizing there was more to it than he had seen. The t-shirt is clearly in poor taste, especially at a time of heightened fears for the security of public figures, having experienced multiple threats himself. He and the Green Party call on everyone involved in public discourse to show kindness and not encourage more division. That wasn't enough for Nigel Farage, however, with the Reform leader proceeding to contact the police. Mr. Farage said this on X while sharing that image. This is what Zack Polanski has just posted on his Instagram. If I was to post anything as insightful, then I would expect to be arrested, and so should Polanski. So, Nigel Farage saying that he expects Zack Polanski to be arrested. But it was Reform Zia Yusuf who seemed the most incensed. He wrote a series of tweets in response to this happening, starting with this one. Zack Polanski has posted to his 713,000 Instagram followers a photo of a man in a t-shirt calling for the beheading of Nigel Farage. I think it's a bit of a stretch. To do this just 2 weeks after our friend Anne was murdered is staggering. Polanski is inciting murder. It must be treated as such by the police. A few hours later, Yusuf followed that up with this. If a council candidate for Reform posted a threat to kill a left-wing politician, it would lead every news cycle in the country for days. The leader of a major left-wing party does so against the leader of Reform UK, and it barely registers. Understand what time it is in Britain. This is in the BBC, Times, Telegraph, Guardian. Is that barely registering? I'm not so sure. Finally, there was this. If Zack Polanski is not in police custody by this time tomorrow, the police will have declared open season on members of parliament. It's like one of those sort of westerns, you know, by noon. If he's not in prison by noon, there'll be hell to pay. In response to the story developing, the Mets, for their part, posted this on X. Earlier today, Monday, 27th of July, we received a third-party report, presumably from Nigel Farage or somebody in Reform, relating to an image shared on social media. We take reports of this nature extremely seriously, and officers are conducting inquiries into the matter. Michael, what do you make of all this?
I think in a time of where political violence is very real and where, free politicians that everyone can name off the top of their head have been murdered. 2 weeks ago, Anne Widdecombe was murdered. Then wearing that T-shirt is an unpleasant thing to do. And I could see why Nigel Farage would be incensed at the existence of that T-shirt. I think Zack Polanski, a number of times now it's become clear, is not careful enough when he's on social media. However, the idea that someone accepting a request to, share 20 photos that he should get arrested is insane. And Zia Yusuf is embarrassing himself. Like they could have said a bunch of reasonable things, right? They could have said, look, the fact that this T-shirt is seen as acceptable by anyone shows that there is a real cultural problem on the left, and the fact
Two tiers,
and the fact that Zack Polanski sort of shared this shows that he's irresponsible or whatever, yada yada yada. But to say he's literally inciting the murder of Nigel Farage and therefore should be arrested tomorrow, it's just crazy. And Zia Yusuf, I don't know what they're doing. Like, Zia Yusuf, I used to think, I never agreed with the guy, but I used to think he seemed like the more competent reform guy. He was a businessman. He wasn't like Andrea Jenkins or someone, right? So I thought the reason they put him on TV all the time is because he seems a bit more credible. But I just think the existence of Restore has fried their brains. They're just constantly talking about arresting people and incitement. And they would say, to be fair to them, their colleague was murdered 2 weeks ago.
100%.
I mean, we shouldn't understate the significance of that.
No.
But, Zia Yusuf actually has been talking like this before that as well. And they do need to sort of grow up a bit, I think. And also, this is just so obviously cynical. I don't believe that Zia Yusuf thinks that Zack Polanski is calling for someone to kill Nigel Farage by accepting that share request from this photographer who shared 20 photos.
That's a great way to put it. Does Zia Yusuf sincerely believe that Zack Polanski wants Nigel Farage to be beheaded by a guillotine? I don't think any sensible person believes that. I should add as well, Michael, there's a political dimension to this story, which is whatever your views on, Zack Polanski and what he shared, and it's important to say this was a collaboration on Instagram. I think it's a really interesting gray area in terms of publishing. He's not published anything. And isn't it interesting? Lucy Connolly can literally write something on X. This guy has accepted an invite to collaborate on 20 images. Lucy Connolly shouldn't go to prison, but apparently Zack Polanski should. I think neither of them should, obviously. That's my view. I think if one of them is going to go to prison, it should be Lucy Connolly, which was much worse than what Zack Polanski did. But she deleted it. We can have a conversation about that another time, I guess. But the politics of this are really interesting for me. So you have, on the one hand, Labour, new Prime Minister, in his second week, just every day, 6 a.m., new policy, really relevant. Last week, we had 3 really big policies: VAT on electricity bills, £2 bus fare cap, and now, including those 2, of course, really attention-grabbing policies. And now this week, we've got, again, really interesting kind of news-setting media sort of appearances and policy conversations around education for young people. Really important stuff that everybody cares about. Doesn't mean they all agree with him, but everybody cares about this stuff. And meanwhile, you have Reform, who have been, until this week, leading in basically every national poll for a year, having a by-election against a bin in Clacton, and now calling for the arrest of a guy who's not even an MP. Divorce this from, obviously, the question of political violence, what happened to Anne Widdecombe. For the median voter, and guess what, you're in the politics game, that matters, it kind of looks bewildering, right? It kind of looks like they're almost trying to make themselves irrelevant. Like they're really clawing at something here, and it feels to me like Reform are yet to adapt to a political environment where Keir Starmer is along with the Prime Minister. They still think that actually we just need to set the news agenda, we need to get clicks, we need to get eyeballs, we need to get attention. But Burnham is quite a substantial political figure. He has something of a political program, which actually people care about. People don't hate the dude already, which they have with Starmer. And Reform are still playing by the old rules. What's your view?
And they're still obsessively talking about the Green Party, right? Because they're very comfortable with a Reform versus Greens battle. It kind of fits them quite well because sort of everything Reform believe, Zack Polanski is the opposite, right? So they can sort of put forward the Greens as the opposite of what a Reform voter or, their core voter, let's say, wants. Lower migration, tough law and order, yada, 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 sort of a market economy. All of these, they can point to Zack Polanski and say, if you're, this guy's scary to you. And they seem to want to keep doing that. And they seem to have forgotten that the Greens are much lower in the polls. Labour are storming ahead and they can't lay a finger on Andy Burnham at the moment. And it does seem like they're desperate and they're lashing out. Again, their colleague, Anne Widdecombe was the justice spokesperson for Reform and she was murdered in her home.
She was also, she was the shadow Home Secretary, right, for the Tory party, 24 years ago. She was a big national political figure.
So if they are in a heightened emotional state, to be fair, maybe we should give them a little bit of grace, but it's a strange political strategy that they're pursuing.
Totally. And you want to be the government. That might sound insensitive what you just said, but you literally want to govern the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, 68 million people, G7 economy, nuclear power. Like, you do have to appeal to the median voter. And what you're saying about Reform, not really knowing what to do with Burnham, I kind of feel like it's the same with the Greens. Because they're still saying the same things they were saying a few months ago, right? So on the one hand, Reform are playing by a set of rules where Labour is really unpopular by default and the job is to get attention, right? And the Greens are saying, stop Reform. Actually, the problem for the Greens is not stop Reform anymore. Labour are coming for your votes, okay? Labour are coming for those councils you won in May. Labour are coming for your 5 MPs, right? You run for dozens of MPs. Actually, I think getting to double figures with Burnham would be a real accomplishment because Burnham is coming for their votes big time. And you're right. I think both sides, they wouldn't want to admit it, of course, both sides were far more politically comfortable with this polarization.
Yeah. And they were fighting each other.
Yeah. It really helped them. I mean, it helped the Greens in Gorton and Denson, and it helped Reform to some extent, obviously, in the local elections.
100%.
Things have changed.
I mean, the thing is, obviously Andy Burnham is in his honeymoon, right? So Reform can keep their powder dry and he's going to come up with a lot of, or arrive at a lot of issues which do split his base, migration, welfare reform, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, that's when Reform will see the opportunity to pounce, presumably. But at the moment, they're just making themselves seem a little bit crazy.
Well, that's the point, right? They're not keeping their powder dry. I mean, that would be the sensible thing. And I'd say also with the Greens, Zack Polanski's done extraordinary work as the leader of the Green Party, so who am I to give advice? But it does feel like right now, just laser in on foreign policy, Israel, and green issues, right? Just laser in on those for a few months. And I think you'll do pretty well. But this guerrilla marketing sort of agitprop approach, which has really worked for them over the last year, you probably need to dial that down right now because Burnham's got this honeymoon and he's got a national audience for at least 3 months, at least till conference season. What do I know? If you like what we're doing here at Novara Media, you can, of course, support our work. Go to novaramedia.com/support, link in the description below. But also, you can just like the video. Costs you nothing. You can also subscribe to the channel. We don't say that nearly enough. We've got how many subscribers is this? 1.6 million?
1.3 million.
1.3 million.
Oh 1.6 million we can aim for.
Gary Stevenson has 1.6 million. Can we overtake Gary Stevenson this year? Not that it's a competition.
Well, he's taking a break, so that
our good friend Gary Stevenson. He has taken a break, although, for how long? 6 months?
Yeah.
It all seems very dramatic. He'll come back after 6 months and he'll have some great new takes and he'll be refreshed. I think people shouldn't be worried about taking breaks.
100%, I agree.
In politics and in
He's
life.
done a good shift.
He's done an amazing shift. Wow. He's completely recalibrated the conversation around wealth inequality in this country. And I should also say, I mentioned Gabriel Zucman a little bit earlier. I interviewed him on Downstream. Check that interview out. Fascinating man. He's just written a book on why we need a wealth tax, how to do it, arguments for it. It's quite an expensive book. It's £10. It's only 60 pages, but it's very quick to read. And if you want to buy a bit of propaganda to persuade people about the merits of a wealth tax, go there. Gabriel Zuckman book, very good. We've got a super chat here, £4.99. Michael's right. Zack's been doing some stupid stuff recently. Oh, controversial. Michael, do you want to sort of expand on that? Zack's been doing some stupid stuff. I suppose Zack might say, well, look, my approach is high risk, high return.
Yeah.
We've had lots of high return, and now there's a little bit of risk.
Yeah. I mean, also, this isn't going to lose him much support, right? It would be, if this was if he was in the same party as Andy Burnham, this would create just this huge, enormous row because they'd be, is he going to get kicked out? Yada, yada, yada. But because he's a leader of the party, he can just say sorry. And 99% of the public are going to go, oh, okay, I said sorry. Like, it's not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal. And Zack will say, you know, his being very online is a big part of his appeal. And if he were to sort of just return to a position of sort of standard professionalism, he would risk, you know, going back to what the Greens were before, which was slightly irrelevant. So, you know, I don't think I'm in a mood to be too harsh with the guy. Generally, I think maybe he could tweet 20% less. Maybe 50% less.
This was Instagram then, Michael.
This was Instagram, or even any social media, maybe 30% less.
There's a good line
I'm
here.
Negotiating with myself. I've gone from 10 to 50 to 30.
River8512, Zack to basics. I like
Very
it.
good.
Look, just spend a month litter picking and talking about foreign policy and butterflies. Aren't there lots of painted ladies this year?
Cleaning up rivers.
Oh,
Paul Polsland.
Paul Powsland, Zack Polanski collab. Now that
would be great.
Now that would do well on Instagram, Zack. Have that for free. It's not just Nigel Farage and Zia Yusuf having emotional outbursts on X. Richard Tice is at it too. On Saturday, the BBC published this story reporting that the police were investigating donations allegedly made to Reform UK by a company controlled by Tice. The article goes on to report this. Britain Means Business gave the party 2 donations of £250,000 in the run-up to the 2024 general election when Tice was party chairman. Tice has said the money was given to his firm by Fiona Cottrell. That name sounds familiar. A significant donor to Reform UK and mother of a convicted fraudster with close links to Nigel Farage. Earlier this month, the Times newspaper revealed that 2 donations given directly by Fiona Cottrell to Reform UK in May 2024 were being investigated by the Metropolitan Police. That investigation relates to legislation governing elections, which bans concealing or disguising donations derived from a, quote, impermissible donor, or the use of false information about a donation, including the amount or the identity of the donor. Britain Means Business, which is, I love that. They really have a gift, don't they, for these kind of catchy phrases, the reform lot. Britain Means Business, which is solely owned and controlled by Tice, received £1 million from Fiona Cottrell. Did they not think this stuff was going to come out? I mean, goodness. Received £1 million from Fiona Cottrell in June 2024. Disclosures to the Electoral Commission show that the company then donated a total of £500,000 to Reform UK in the same month. Tice told the BBC earlier this month that it was entirely his choice for the company to give half of the money from Fiona Cottrell to his party. The payments came to light when the Guardian newspaper External revealed that they had been flagged to the National Crime Agency as part of its Suspicious Activity Reports programme. Now BBC News has learned that they are part of the Met's investigation into donations to Reform UK. In response to the BBC's reporting, a Reform spokesperson said this. Reform takes pride in its stringent vetting of donations and always ensures that the Electoral Commission guidelines on donations, as set out in the Political Parties, Elections and Referendums Act 2000, are strictly followed, as has been the case with donations so far. And for his part, Tice said he was mystified, telling the BBC this. This is the first I've heard of it. If true, why are the Met Police briefing the BBC before contacting interested parties? Is the Met leadership now engaged in the widespread politically motivated smear campaign against Reform and its leaders? There's no evidence in the article that the Met Police briefed the BBC on anything. It looks more like the BBC just contacted the Met, asking them to confirm the details of an investigation, and they did. But Tice then took to Twitter, where he issued an extraordinary threat. Both the BBC and Met Police appear to have acted in clear breach of legal obligations, contrary to well-established case law. In the BBC's reporting about me over the weekend, I have written to both the Commissioner of the Met Police and the BBC's Director General setting out these serious breaches. My lawyers have also been instructed. any media organization considering repeating these allegations should exercise the utmost caution. There's lots of threats coming from reform, aren't there? And they're not even in power yet. A reminder to Mr. Tice, you're an MP who wants to be in government, and you're threatening the press against reporting on an investigation and suggesting a conspiracy. Again, it doesn't seem very serious, does it?
I've forgotten what they want to do. what were they?
What was their policy again?
They're just angry all the time now.
They just want to arrest everybody.
Just arrest everyone.
A few weeks ago, it was Sky News, right? Do you remember?
Yeah, they wanted to take Sky News off the air.
Yusuf was going to take Sky News off the air. Now it's the BBC.
Arrest Zack Polanski. Investigate the BBC. Like, what's the? Why was anyone? Why were we supposed to vote for them? Migration. Yeah, I mean, they don't. Why aren't they even? Like, I don't want to. I don't want to be the guy who reminds Reform UK to talk about migration. But that was their strength, right? People were annoyed about small boats of migration.
Yeah.
And they've just decided to just point at people and say, arrest them.
And the weird thing is, Burnham hasn't said anything about any of that stuff. You'd think he might be vulnerable to it, right?
Yeah. But we should stop giving them advice. You can imagine like the strategist of Reform saying, Nigel Farage, I mean, it was going well when you talked about migration. Why are you talking about migration again?
Maybe if they just go for one more arrest. One more push, comrades. Laura Koonsberg, when we're joking about this in a gulag in the I don't know, the Isle of Arran or the Outer Hebrides, I'll feel faintly ridiculous. But until then, this doesn't feel like something a government in waiting does.
And it's showing in the polls as well, right? This is not just our opinion. Like, they are going down in the polls. Labour are going up in the polls. Like, they're lacking momentum. They wanted to regather momentum with this by-election, but it turns out he's just standing against a bin. I mean, by the way, if all the other parties had stood in that by-election, how different a story would we have this summer? It would be, Clacton would be a circus. It would be, people would be calling it Andy Burnham's first big test. This by-election that Labour were never going to win anyway. Like, it does make it seem very smart that they all decided not to stand.
Should the Greens have stood?
By-election.
I think I totally get why Labour didn't stand, or the Tories, the major parties, because he was going to win and they look impotent as a result. But should the Greens have stood? Because they could have got 30% of the vote, at least, right? And then they can say, well, look, we've got 30% in Farage's own seat. We can win anywhere. Or be competitive anywhere, anyway.
I mean, it might have been better for the Greens. It would have also been much better for Reform. So it depends. I mean, at the moment, I suppose this summer, both the Greens and Reform are struggling to have relevance. And if they'd both fought in that by-election, then yes, they would have had a bit more relevance. But the Greens would also have been doing Nigel Farage a massive favour. So, I mean, I think, for the sake of the country, they've acted in the national interest by not standing in that by-election, even though for their own party relevance and support, maybe they should have done.
There are people in Clacton who do want to vote for the Green Party. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I just think that the whole point is that this is a fake by-election, right? That's a strong line. I don't think there is anyone. Well, I mean, I'm sure there are some people in the constituency who sort of.
But they're going to vote for Binface. I mean, he probably will get double digits, right? I mean, I say that.
It's funny. It's much funnier being Binface than it being the Greens. It makes sense. I mean, I think this has gone perfectly. I don't think we need to relitigate what should have happened in this by-election. This is as good as it could get.
This is like Hannibal in the A-Team. I love it when a plan comes together.
Exactly.